intercultural communication. Problems of intercultural communication, Yury Chalenko.
Good evening, dear Toastmasters and most welcome guests. Do we know about life abroad? For example, in Great Britain, in Sweden, in France? Yes, we do. First things that come to my mind are Big Ben and Mr. Bean for Great Britain, French wine and cheese for France. About Sweden, nothing so special, at least Swedish family. Not that anyway. And these people will come to Ukraine for Euro 2012, very soon. Do they know about life in Ukraine? No, they don't. If you go to any travelers forum, you can see strange questions like, is it safe for me to come to Ukraine in a couple? Asking probably a worried wife. Or, what can I see in this strange country? Or even, I found a friend, a woman in the internet. Can you help me find her here? There are lots of questions, and the well-known traveler's website called Lonely Planet says the following about Ukraine. When we don't know about a country, we often use cliches, and Ukraine, the great unknown of Europe, has plenty of them. Today I'm going to tell you about adventures of foreigners in the other great unknown, in Russia. I hope that my story can be helpful for you to avoid mistakes in intercultural communication and perhaps better understand those who come to our country for the first time. Let's start from the beginning. I studied in Finland in 2006 with a group of foreign students, and on our holiday we decided to go to St. Petersburg to see this wonderful city. There were 4 French students, 3 Dutch, 1 Czech, 1 Russian and me. Our guide was a Russian student called Nadia. Her appearance might seem shocking at first. She had piercing in her nose, tongue and chin, and her hair was painted in different colors, like purple and green, definitely not black. Those who dared speak to her would actually find she was quite a clever and nice girl. She helped foreigners with visas to St. Petersburg and also arranged a trip by bus. When we arrived there, unfortunately she couldn't help them to avoid mistakes. Their first mistake was self-confidence. They booked hostel on their own. They didn't listen to Nadia's advice to book a hostel in the city center. And as a result, they lived in a place far away from metro stations, far away from civilization at all. It was in Piskaryovka district, and the only remarkable site nearby was the graveyard. It became a problem later on. Their second mistake was using too many stereotypes. When we were in Finland, our Finnish teacher, Anneli Savolainen, was warning us something like that. Dear students, Russia is not a safe country. Keep your money here on the chest in a small bag and be very, very careful. Even I felt very worried, although I had visited Russia several times. And you can imagine the conditions of foreigners who had to see Russia for the first time. So, when we were going to Russia by bus, they were telling bad jokes like, "Oh, ho ho, bad Russian will rob you," or "and you will be beaten by Russians." Don't be so happy. As a result, they found trouble. First, they arrived to St. Petersburg in the daytime, and we walked around the city. When we went to a nightclub in the evening and stayed until 11 p.m., foreigners decided that they wanted to go home. But Nadia asked them, "Please stay at least for 1 more hour, and I'll go with you." Unfortunately, they didn't listen to her, and she caught a taxi for them. She asked the driver if he knew the way to Piskaryovka, and he said something like, "No problem, I can do it." The next day I learned their adventures. Unfortunately, the driver forgot the road to Piskaryovka, and foreigners became really nervous. It was dark, the car had stopped, and the driver didn't speak English at all. First, they started to panic. They called Nadia by mobile, but she had no money on her account. At that time, you had to pay to accept an incoming call, and she had no money, so they couldn't reach Nadia. At that time, they started to panic, they started to scream, and somehow they finally reached home. But after that, they weren't so happy anymore. After that, they quarreled with Nadia, but I think Nadia was right. I think they should have listened to her. And it wasn't their final mistake. Third mistake was made when they became too suspicious of Russians. A tall Dutch guy named Martin wanted to take some money from an automated banking machine in the street, perhaps to buy souvenirs or something else. He took 50,000 rubles and was standing like that and holding them, but he didn't notice a poor homeless Russian approaching him from behind. That poor man just wanted some money for food or something like that. He asked Martin, and at that moment Martin perhaps thought that it was his last hour and bad Russian would surely kill him. He was about 2 meters high and still he was trembling. Again he was lucky because Nadia was nearby. She gave 100 rubles to the poor Russian and he went away. When they were going home to Finland, nobody was joking anymore. I want to say that we speak English very well here. We have to do our best when foreigners come. We must do everything to help them, and perhaps they will come here again. As a conclusion, I want to say famous words, first said by Martin Luther King and later by Barack Obama. I have a dream. I don't want our country to be the great unknown anymore. I want foreigners to come here not only to find a wife, but also with families and with children. I want to hear the children say, "Mama, I don't want to stay in Britain. Papa, I don't want to stay in France. Let's go and see this wonderful country, Ukraine."